Hey, and welcome to the AI Timeline channel. If you like the podcast, please leave a like and subscribe. Now have fun with the podcast. So apparently the future is now
Yeah.
because OpenAI's released these new O3 models. They say these things can reason like us, break down problems, think things through. But is this really a revolution in problem solving? What do you think?
Well, it depends on what you mean by reasoning like us, these O3 models.
Yeah.
They come in two flavors, O3, which is the heavy hitter, and then a lighter version, O3 Mini. They're both designed with a focus on reasoning skills, which is a pretty big deal in the world of AI, but it's not quite like human thought.
Right. Because I don't break down a problem by crunching terabytes of data, at least not usually. So how does this thinking actually work? The source mentions something called a private chain of thought, which sounds a bit like the AI is having a therapy session with itself.
It's a bit less dramatic than that. What's interesting is that instead of just spitting out an answer based on the data it's trained on, the O3 model actually goes through a series of internal steps. It analyzes the problem, considers different approaches, and then arrives at a solution, almost like it's working through the problem step by step, like we might with a complex puzzle.
Okay, so less therapy session, more like a very intense game of Sudoku. But can this internal Sudoku really solve real-world problems? I mean, the source throws around some impressive stats.
The stats are pretty remarkable. For instance, O3 achieved a 71.7% success rate in some pretty advanced coding challenges. Think about it, an AI that can not only write code, but actually solve complex programming problems. That's a game changer for software development.
Yeah, I could definitely use an AI that could debug my code,
Yeah.
especially after that last project, which we definitely won't talk about. But coding aside, the source mentions O3 can tackle some seriously high-level math, differential equations, proofs, and formal logic, making my head spin just thinking about it.
Right, but those are crucial in fields like research, finance, even theoretical physics. The fact that O3 can grapple with these concepts opens up a whole world of possibilities. Imagine the potential for scientific discoveries. For modeling complex systems, it's pretty exciting.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Of course, and remember, O3 scored incredibly high on the ARC benchmark, which is specifically designed to test an AI's ability to think in new situations.
So it's not just a one-trick pony. This O3 can adapt and learn, just like those AI overlords in all the sci-fi movies. But before we all start panicking about a robot uprising, let's talk about how this tech could actually be used in the real world. And I don't just mean taking over my job. Okay, so the source paints this picture of O3 revolutionizing everything: healthcare, software development, even the creative industries. It's like O3 is going to single-handedly solve all the world's problems and then write a best-selling novel about it.
What are the most realistic applications, you think?
Well, let's start with healthcare. The potential for faster drug discovery is huge. Imagine O3 sifting through mountains of data on molecular structures, biological processes, and identifying promising new drug candidates. It could cut years off the development process.
So no more waiting decades for a cure. Sign me up. But what about diagnostics? Could O3 play a role there?
Definitely. Think about it. O3 could analyze a patient's entire medical history, genetic information, current symptoms, and pinpoint the underlying cause with an accuracy we can only dream of today. It's like having a team of medical experts at your fingertips, all crunching data and providing insights in real time.
Wow, that's impressive. But let's shift gears to software development. We already talked about O3 debugging code, but the source hints at even bigger changes.
Absolutely. Imagine a world where you can describe the software you want, and O3 can actually generate the code for you. It could build entire applications based on your specifications, potentially transforming the way we approach software development.
Okay, that's next level stuff.
Well, duh.
But what about all the people whose jobs involve, actually writing code? Are we all going to be out of work?
It's not about replacing humans, but rather augmenting our capabilities. O3 could handle the tedious, repetitive tasks, freeing up developers to focus on the creative, high-level aspects of software design. It's about collaboration, not competition.
That's a relief. But let's move on to something a bit more existential. The source talks about O3 modeling complex systems like climate change. Is this AI going to save the planet for us?
It's not a magic bullet, but O3's ability to analyze vast data sets and identify patterns could give us a much deeper understanding of how climate change works. Imagine running simulations that factor in all the variables, all the feedback loops, and generating predictions that can help us mitigate the effects.
So it's like having a crystal ball for the climate, but one that's actually based on science. That's pretty powerful. But before we get lost in the world of the data and models, the source also mentions O3 having creative potential. AI writing stories, designing video games, It sounds like science fiction.
It might sound far-fetched, but think about it. Storytelling and game design rely on logic, reasoning, and pattern recognition, all areas where O3 excels. Imagine an AI that could analyze all the great works of literature, identify the elements that make them compelling, and then use that knowledge to generate new stories.
So basically, O3 could be the ultimate ghostwriter.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a game designer. What does that even look like?
It's hard to say for sure, but the possibilities are intriguing. Imagine playing a video game where the levels are constantly evolving, adapting to your playing style. Thanks to the power of AI, it could revolutionize interactive entertainment.
Okay, now that's a future I can get behind. AI designing video games. Sign me up. But before we all get too excited about O3 becoming the next Shakespeare or the next Spielberg, let's talk about the flip side.
Yeah.
Because every superhero has a villain.
Right.
All right, so we've talked about O3 curing diseases, writing code, and even delighting video games. But let's be real. With all this power comes a whole lot of what-ifs. What are the potential downsides here? Is this the beginning of the end for humanity as we know it?
I wouldn't say it's the apocalypse just yet, but there are definitely some serious questions we need to consider. One of the big ones is transparency. How do we know how O3 is arriving at its conclusions, especially when it comes to things like medical diagnoses or financial decisions?
Right, it's like, hey, O3, why did you just invest all my money in that alpaca farm?
Yes.
And O3 just stares back at you with its glowing red eyes. Not exactly reassuring. So how do we make this AI more transparent?
That's where explainable AI comes in, or XAI. It's all about developing techniques that allow us to understand the decision-making process of these complex systems. Imagine if O3 could actually explain its reasoning, step by step, in a way that we humans could understand.
So it's like giving the AI a voice, so it can tell us, hey, I invested in that alpaca farm because I predict a 200% return on investment in the next 6 months. That would be helpful, although maybe a little creepy. But transparency is just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
What about the broader societal impact of all this?
Exactly. We're talking about potential job displacement, privacy concerns, even the philosophical question of what it means to be human in a world where AI can do so much. These aren't easy questions to answer.
Yeah, it's like we're stepping into uncharted territory. So how do we navigate this new world? We just throw up our hands and say, let the AI figure it out.
Definitely not. We need a collaborative effort from researchers, policymakers, and society as a whole. We need to develop ethical guidelines for AI development, promote transparency and accountability, and foster open discussions about the potential impact of these technologies.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but about how we choose to use it. It's a big responsibility. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we sign off?
The O3 models are incredibly powerful. There's no doubt about that. They have the potential to revolutionize countless industries and aspects of our lives. But it's crucial that we proceed with caution, that we ask the tough questions, and that we work together to ensure that AI benefits all of humanity.
Well said. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. Leave a like and subscribe. Until next time, remember the future of AI is still being written, and we all have a role to play in shaping that story.